What if one unexpected act of kindness from Jungkook changed a stranger's life forever? Discover this emotional fictional story filled with mystery, hope, unforgettable moments, and a heartfelt ending that will stay with you long after you finish reading. Before we begin, don't forget to leave a comment sharing where you're watching from and what Jungkook means to you. If you enjoy emotional BTS-inspired stories like this one, please like this story and subscribe for more heartwarming fictional adventures inspired by the love between BTS and ARMY. The rain had almost stopped, yet the streets of Seoul still shimmered beneath the soft glow of the city lights. Most people hurried past without noticing the lonely figure sitting quietly on a worn wooden bench near the riverside. Wrapped in an oversized gray hoodie, the young man kept his head lowered as though he wanted to disappear into the night itself. But what if that ordinary-looking stranger wasn't ordinary at all? And what if the person who would unknowingly cross his path that evening carried a secret capable of changing two lives forever? No one standing nearby could have guessed that within the next hour, a single act of kindness would become a memory impossible to erase. There would be no cameras prepared for the moment, no concert lights, no screaming crowds, only the sound of distant rain, trembling footsteps, and a heart quietly breaking. Emily tightened her grip on the small paper bag she carried against her chest. It contained nothing expensive, only a handwritten letter she had spent nearly 3 years trying to finish. Every sentence had been rewritten countless times because no words ever seemed worthy enough. "I'll never get the chance," she whispered to herself, fighting back tears. The doctors had given her little hope only weeks before. A rare illness had forced her to abandon university and return home. Her dream of attending another BTS event had quietly faded into something she no longer dared imagine. Tonight was supposed to be her final visit to the Han River before flying back home. She had promised herself she wouldn't cry. She failed. As tears blurred her vision, the paper bag slipped from her hands. The carefully folded letter drifted across the wet pavement before stopping beside someone's sneakers. A pair of gentle hands reached down before she could react. "I'm sorry, I think this belongs to you." The voice was soft, calm, unmistakably familiar. Emily slowly lifted her eyes. Time itself seemed to stop. Standing only a few feet away was Jungkook. Not under dazzling stage lights. Not surrounded by security or cameras. Just one person quietly holding a rain-soaked letter, as if it were the most precious thing in the world. Emily froze. Her heart pounded so loudly she could barely hear the rain anymore. "And no," she whispered, this can't be real." Jungkook smiled shyly, almost embarrassed by her reaction. "I guess tonight wasn't supposed to be ordinary," he said with a small laugh. Neither of them knew that the letter in his hands contained a secret so heartbreaking it would leave them both speechless before the night was over. And once Jungkook unfolded the first page, everything would change. For several long seconds, neither of them moved. Emily's breathing became uneven as she stared at the familiar face standing before her. She had imagined meeting Jungkook countless times in her daydreams, usually surrounded by thousands of cheering ARMY during a concert. Never like this. Never in complete silence with only the gentle sound of rain tapping against the pavement. Jungkook carefully looked down at the letter in his hands before extending it toward her. "I didn't read it," he said softly. "It looked personal." Emily accepted the letter with trembling fingers. "Thank you." Her voice cracked before she could finish. Jungkook noticed immediately. "Are you all right?" She wanted to answer. She truly did. But months of fear, disappointment, loneliness, and uncertainty had built walls inside her heart that suddenly collapsed all at once. Without warning, tears streamed down her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered repeatedly. "I'm really sorry." Jungkook looked around, noticing that only a few people were passing by. None of them seemed to recognize him beneath the oversized hoodie and black cap. "It's okay," he replied gently. "No, it's not." Emily lowered her head. "I promised myself I wouldn't cry if I ever met you." His expression softened. "You don't have to apologize for crying." The words were simple, yet somehow they carried a warmth that made her cry even harder. After giving her a few moments to collect herself, Jungkook quietly sat on the empty bench nearby, leaving enough space so she wouldn't feel uncomfortable. "You don't have to tell me anything," he said. "But if talking helps, I'll listen." Emily looked at him in disbelief. "You would really stay?" He smiled. "Sometimes people don't need answers. They just need someone who doesn't walk away." For a long moment, the city disappeared around them. No flashing advertisements. No busy traffic. No noise. Only two strangers sharing the same quiet night. Emily slowly unfolded the rain-damaged letter. "I wrote this for you." Jungkook blinked in surprise. "For me?" She nodded. "I started writing it almost 3 years ago. But every time I tried to finish it, I couldn't." "Why?" She stared toward the river. "Because I wanted it to be perfect. And life never gave me the chance." Jungkook remained silent. She continued speaking, her voice barely above a whisper. "When BTS helped me through my darkest days, I kept telling myself that someday I'd thank you properly. I thought there would always be another concert, another opportunity, another tomorrow." A painful smile appeared on her face. "But sometimes tomorrow never arrives the way we expect." Jungkook lowered his eyes. Those words felt strangely familiar. As someone who had spent years chasing impossible dreams, sacrificing sleep, enduring injuries, and living beneath constant expectations, he understood how fragile tomorrow could be. Emily hesitated. There was something else. "What is it?" She took a deep breath. "A month ago, I was diagnosed with a rare heart condition." Jungkook's smile slowly disappeared. She forced herself to continue. "The doctors said treatment might work, but they couldn't promise anything." Silence filled the air. "I didn't tell my friends. I didn't even tell most of my family how scared I really was." She laughed bitterly through tears. "I was afraid everyone would look at me differently." Jungkook looked down at his own hands. For once, he didn't know what to say. Because there were no perfect words. Only honest ones. "I'm really sorry you've had to carry all of that alone." Emily shook her head. "I wasn't completely alone." She gently held up the letter. "Whenever life became too difficult, I imagined that someday I'd be able to hand this to you. It gave me hope." Jungkook felt an unexpected tightness in his chest. He had always known music could comfort people. But hearing someone's story face to face was entirely different. It wasn't numbers. It wasn't streaming records. It wasn't awards. It was a real person. A real life. A real struggle. He slowly asked, "Would it be all right if I read it now?" Emily hesitated before nodding. "I think it's finally ready." Very carefully, Jungkook unfolded the slightly wrinkled pages. The handwriting wasn't perfectly straight. Some words had been crossed out. Tiny water stains blurred parts of the ink. Whether from rain or tears, it was impossible to tell. The first sentence immediately caught his attention. "Dear Jungkook, you once said that even when we feel lost, we should keep walking because someday we'll discover why we never gave up. I don't know if you'll ever read this, but if you do, Thank you for unknowingly saving someone you never even met. Jungkook stopped reading. His vision blurred. He blinked several times, surprised to feel tears gathering in his own eyes. Emily noticed. You don't have to finish it if it's uncomfortable. He gently shook his head. No, I want to know your story. What neither of them realized was that someone standing several meters away had quietly recognized Jungkook. A phone slowly rose into the air. Its camera began recording. Within minutes, a simple, private conversation meant only for two people would unexpectedly find its way onto the internet. And once millions of people saw what happened next, no one would ever look at that rainy evening the same way again. The man holding the phone hesitated. At first, he simply wanted proof that he had spotted Jungkook walking alone by the Han River. It felt unbelievable. No security team, no flashing cameras, just Jungkook sitting quietly beside a young woman whose face was hidden behind strands of damp hair. But as he zoomed in, something stopped him. Jungkook wasn't posing. He wasn't waving. He wasn't smiling for anyone. He was listening. Really listening. The man slowly lowered his phone. Maybe this moment isn't meant for the internet, he whispered to himself, before slipping the device back into his pocket and quietly walking away. Meanwhile, Jungkook continued reading the letter. Every page revealed another chapter of Emily's life. She wrote about sleepless nights in hospital rooms, where the only thing keeping her company was BTS's music, playing softly through a pair of worn-out earphones. She wrote about birthdays spent alone, because she didn't want her friends to see how weak she had become. She wrote about pretending to smile for her parents, so they wouldn't cry when they thought she wasn't looking. And between every painful memory, she thanked him, not because he knew her, but because, without realizing it, his songs had given her enough courage to survive one more day. One more week. One more month. Jungkook closed the final page and remained completely silent. The city lights reflected across the river like countless tiny stars. He looked at Emily. I don't think I deserve this much gratitude. She frowned. What? I've never met you before tonight. You fought those battles. You stayed strong. You survived. Emily smiled sadly. I survived because someone reminded me it was okay to keep trying. Jungkook's eyes slowly lowered. I've had days when I didn't believe in myself either. Emily looked surprised. You. He laughed quietly. People think idols are fearless. We're not. We worry. We fail. We cry. We question ourselves. Sometimes we stand on stage smiling, after spending the entire night wondering if we're good enough. Emily listened without interrupting. No matter how many people cheer, Jungkook continued, there are moments when loneliness still finds you. For the first time that evening, she saw not a global superstar, but a young man carrying invisible burdens of his own. I guess, she said softly, we're both human. Jungkook smiled. Exactly. The silence between them no longer felt awkward. It felt peaceful. A cool breeze drifted across the river, carrying away the last traces of rain. Emily suddenly laughed. Jungkook looked confused. What? I just realized. My hair probably looks terrible. He chuckled. I wasn't going to say anything. Oh no. She covered her face with both hands. This is officially the most embarrassing day of my life. I've cried for 20 minutes in front of Jungkook. You've seen my ugly crying. You've read my emotional letter. And now my hair looks like this. Jungkook laughed harder than he had all evening. I promise. Your hair survived. His laughter was so genuine that Emily couldn't help laughing too. For a few precious moments, the illness, the fear, the uncertainty, everything disappeared. They were simply two people sharing an unexpectedly joyful conversation beneath the night sky. After the laughter faded, Jungkook reached into his jacket pocket. He pulled out a small purple wristband. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't covered in jewels. Its color had faded from months of use. "I've been carrying this for a while," he said. Emily looked at it curiously. "It reminds me that no matter how difficult life becomes, someone somewhere believes in me." He carefully placed it into her hand. "Now I'd like you to keep believing too." Emily stared at the bracelet. "I can't accept this. I really can't. I'll feel guilty." Jungkook gently closed her fingers around it. "Then don't think of it as a gift. Think of it as a promise." "A promise?" He nodded. "Promise me that whenever things become difficult, you'll keep moving forward. No matter how slowly. No matter how scared you feel." Emily's eyes filled with tears once again. "I promise." "And you?" Jungkook looked toward the glowing skyline. "I'll make one too." "What is it?" "I'll keep making music. Hopping it reaches people exactly when they need it." For the first time in months, Emily felt something she thought she had lost forever. Hope. Real hope. Just then her phone vibrated. The hospital. Her heart skipped a beat. With shaking hands she answered. "Hello." Several seconds passed. Her expression slowly changed. Confusion. Disbelief. Then tears. Different tears this time. "Are you serious?" She covered her mouth. I understand. We'll be there." She ended the call but remained frozen. Jungkook watched her carefully. "Emily." She looked at him, unable to speak. "What happened?" She laughed through tears. "The hospital. They found something." "What do you mean?" "The specialist reviewed my latest scans. They think there's another treatment. One they didn't know I qualified for before." Jungkook's eyes widened. "The chances are much better now." Emily burst into tears again. "They said." "I finally have real hope." Neither of them noticed the moon emerging from behind the clouds. Neither of them noticed that the city seemed brighter than before. Because at that moment, hope itself felt brighter than every light in Seoul. And neither of them could have imagined that this chance meeting beside the river was only the beginning of a friendship that would quietly change both of their lives forever. For a long while, neither of them spoke. Emily simply held the purple wristband against her heart, as if she were afraid it might disappear the moment she let go. The doctor's words still echoed in her mind. "You have another chance." Just hours earlier, she had walked to the Han River believing she was saying goodbye to a dream. Now, somehow, she was walking away with something she had almost forgotten existed. A future. Jungkook stood beside her, quietly watching the lights dance across the water. "It's strange," he said with a gentle smile. "What is?" "Life." Emily looked at him. "You spend months preparing for something important. And then, the moment that changes everything happens completely by accident." She smiled. "Maybe it wasn't an accident." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I think some people are meant to meet. Not forever. Just long enough to remind each other why they shouldn't give up." Jungkook didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked toward the river where the gentle current carried countless reflections into the darkness. "My grandmother used to tell me something similar," he said. Even a brief encounter can leave a lifelong warmth. Emily softly repeated the words to herself. A lifelong warmth. The sentence settled deep inside her heart. A few minutes later, Jungkook's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen and sighed with a small laugh. I've been found. Emily blinked. Your manager. He nodded. I disappeared longer than I was supposed to. She immediately looked guilty. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to keep you. You didn't. I stayed because I wanted to. Before she could respond, a black van slowly approached the nearby curb. It stopped quietly. The passenger door opened. A familiar manager stepped out, looking relieved and slightly exhausted. There you are, he said, shaking his head. We've been looking everywhere. Jungkook smiled apologetically. I know. I'm sorry. The manager was about to continue when he noticed Emily standing nearby with tearful eyes. His expression immediately softened. I hope we didn't interrupt. Jungkook shook his head. Actually, I made a new friend tonight. The manager smiled politely at Emily. I'm glad. He didn't ask questions. Some moments deserved privacy. Jungkook turned back toward Emily. I guess this is goodbye. Her heart sank. So soon. He laughed softly. If I stay much longer, my manager might actually fire me. The manager chuckled. I heard that. For the first time all evening, everyone laughed together. Then the laughter slowly faded. Emily suddenly remembered something. Wait. She reached into her bag and carefully removed a tiny silver pin shaped like a constellation. It isn't expensive, but I always carried it with me. My mother gave it to me before my first BTS concert. Jungkook looked surprised. I want you to have it. I can't. Please. It's my way of saying thank you. He hesitated. Finally, he accepted it with both hands. I'll treasure it. I promise. Emily smiled. And I'll treasure this. She gently touched the purple wristband. A comfortable silence settled between them one last time. Jungkook suddenly stepped forward. Can I? She looked confused. He opened his arms just slightly. A hug. Emily's eyes widened. Really? He laughed. Only if you're comfortable. She didn't hesitate. The hug lasted only a few seconds. But in those few seconds, months of fear, months of loneliness, months of silent pain seemed to melt away. When they stepped back, both of them were smiling through tears. You'll beat this, Jungkook said confidently. Emily nodded. I'll try. No. He smiled. You will. She laughed. You're stubborn. So I've been told. As Jungkook climbed into the waiting van, he rolled down the window. Emily. She looked up. When you get better, promise me you'll come to another concert. She grinned. I'll be there. Front row. I'll hold you to that. The van slowly disappeared into the glowing streets of Seoul. Emily remained standing beside the river, long after its lights vanished from sight. She looked down at the purple wristband, then at the letter, then toward the sky. For the first time in a very long time, she smiled without forcing herself. Months passed. The treatment was difficult. There were painful days. There were setbacks. There were moments when she wanted to quit. Whenever those moments came, she looked at the faded purple wristband and remembered one simple promise. Keep moving forward. 1 year later, the lights inside the stadium dimmed. Thousands of purple light sticks illuminated the darkness like stars. Emily stood among the crowd, healthier than she had been in years. Her heart raced as the opening music filled the arena. Then Jungkook appeared on stage. The cheers were deafening. Halfway through the concert, while speaking to the audience, his eyes briefly wandered across the sea of faces. For a split second, he froze. Near the front section, a young woman raised a handmade sign. It read, "I kept my promise," wrapped around her wrist. The purple bracelet was still there. Jungkook smiled so brightly that the entire stadium noticed. No one else understood why. No cameras captured the memory they shared beside the Han River. No interview would ever tell that story. It remained a quiet secret between two people whose lives had crossed at exactly the right moment. Sometimes, the greatest miracles are not loud enough to make the headlines. Sometimes they happen in silence, in the middle of an ordinary rainy night. With one act of kindness, one promise, and one heart that chose hope over despair. Epilogue, 5 years later. 5 years passed faster than either of them had imagined. The purple wristband had faded even more, but Emily still wore it every single day. Her treatments were finally over. The doctors smiled as they handed her the latest report. "You did it," one of them said. "You've recovered." Emily walked out of the hospital with tears in her eyes. The first person she thought of wasn't herself. It was the young man she had met beside the Han River on a rainy night. A few months later, BTS held another concert in Seoul. This time, Emily wasn't there as someone searching for hope. She was there to celebrate life. Near the end of the concert, Jungkook looked across the audience and noticed a familiar face once again. After the show, a staff member approached Emily. "Someone would like to see you backstage." Her heart raced. When she entered the room, Jungkook was already waiting. For a moment, they simply stared at each other. Then they both laughed. "You look so healthy," Jungkook said. "I kept my promise," Emily replied with a smile. "And I kept mine." He pointed toward the stage behind him. "I never stopped making music." Emily nodded. "And your music never stopped helping people." Jungkook smiled before taking out the small silver constellation pin she had given him years ago. "I still carry it with me." Emily looked at it in surprise. "You really kept it?" "Of course. Some gifts are too meaningful to lose." Before they said goodbye, they took one simple photo together. No cameras from the media. No headlines. No social media posts. Just a quiet memory between two friends whose lives had once crossed at exactly the right time. As they walked in different directions once more, they both knew one thing. Sometimes the people who change our lives don't stay beside us forever. They simply appear when we need them the most, and leave behind enough hope to last a lifetime.